said, I have supports, too. I'm not the only person. Oh, your technology judge is known throughout the state for that.
Didn't know that.
Well,
It should be right by your foot.
So I have to crawl down there? So y'all pass.
Me too. It's not important.
No, I'll take care of it, right?
Okay.
It just, I got enough. I had enough paper. I'm good. I'm not worried about me. No, but thank you for the thoughts.
Julie and Judge.
Not yet. Are you ready?
Yes, Judge.
I thought you were still waiting on him.
Oh, I got it. I got it.
We're
Thank
good.
you.
Let's bring in the jury.
All right. Let's all rise for the jury, please. You know which way you want to do it. Please watch your step. Please watch your step. Please be seated.
You can resume.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Stoddard, we had talked yesterday about the iPhone 5 and whether you were able to look at the call log and verify the phone calls as well from the defendant's own phone regarding records from AT&T and from Home Depot.
That's correct.
Okay, I'm going to show you what's already been shown to the defense as State's Exhibit 647. Do you recognize State 647?
Yes.
And is that a printout of the call log from the report on the defendant's iPhone 5?
It does appear so.
Your Honor, I would tender State's Exhibit 647.
No objection to that.
Admitted.
Detective, in the course of your investigation, when you were examining the iPhone, did you look in, did you examine certain parts of the phone that had notes and things of that nature?
I did.
Did you come across something called, from an app called Evernote?
I did.
And what is Evernote as far as you could tell from researching it?
Evernote says a way you can share notes or share files online.
Okay. Now, in the course of your investigation, did you also come across a sermon that had been done at the defendant's church on June the 15th?
I did.
Okay. And what was the nature of that sermon?
It kind of goes through and it talks about sin and desire and to death.
Okay. And was it like I guess, a lengthy sermon that day?
It was.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 648 and 649. First showing, well, based upon what you found, did you subpoena records from Evernote?
I did.
Okay. And did you get those records back?
We did.
First, Judge, I would tender State's Exhibit 648. There's a business record certification for this, as the other exhibits, to permit the authentication of these records.
I don't object to that.
Admitted.
And showing you State's Exhibit 649, do you recognize this?
I do.
And how do you recognize that?
It's an actual printout from the Evernote.
And is that a fair and accurate photograph of the file from Evernote depicting what the defendant had typed into his phone on Evernote on June the 15th, 2014?
Yes.
Okay, Your Honor, I tender that exhibit as well.
Don't object to that.
Admitted.
Now, with this, out of all of the sermons and things of that nature, this date, 6/15/2014, did the defendant enter anything into his phone or take any particular notes?
He did.
Okay, and on that, what was the title of his note?
Anatomy of Temptation.
And what did the note say under Anatomy of Temptation?
Underneath Anatomy of Temptation, it says desire is greater than sin, and it doesn't say it's greater than, it's like a greater than sign. So desire is greater than sin is greater than death.
Let's publish this to the jury. that Sunday as well, both, during the day, was the defendant engaged in the same type of, behavior, contacting other women and things of that nature?
Yes, he was.
We talked a lot about, yesterday, these whispers and things of that nature, okay? I've got a few other ones, to go over with you, okay? I'm gonna start with State's Exhibit 636, defense has already seen this. There was one, whisper, do you remember a whisper where it did not have the photograph on it, on the back? And it was, his conversation with the 17-year-old girl talking about a double life?
Correct.
Okay. State's Exhibit 636, is that actually the whisper that goes with that?
Yes.
And it says, "I would have sex for money."
Yes.
Okay, Your Honor, I would tender State's Exhibit 636 at this time.
Same objections that we've made previously to all of these, information that was downloaded electronically, Judge. All the same objections.
Admitted over all those objections.
Now I'm going to show you what's been marked, shown to defense counsel previously as State's Exhibit 636. Watch out for the microphone. Do you recognize State's Exhibit 631?
I do.
And how do you recognize that?
I'll just look another whisper.
Okay. Now, is this a whisper between an unknown participant on June 18th, 2014, starting at 2:46 a.m.?
Yes.
Okay. And is that conversation, is that report a fair and accurate representation of the conversation that was pulled from the defendant's phone?
Like yours, sir.
Okay, Your Honor, I would tender that exhibit as well.
So 631?
I believe that's what it was. 631, Detective?
631.
Yes.
Let me see that again.
At 10:46? I think it begins at 10:46.
Yeah, sorry, I said 10:46.
Ah, thanks.
Yeah, sorry.
What is the time?
It's 10:46, Judge.
That's what I thought. Same objection.
Same ruling.
Okay. So at 10:46, tell the jury what first of all, what is the actual post that the defendant was responding to?
Having an extremely boring and slow day. Can anyone help the time go by faster? Question mark, 20F.
And how did the defendant respond to that?
My J just started to.
And what time did he respond?
10:46 a.m.
What did the other person respond back with?
Just started and I feel like I've been awake for forever. Haha.
Okay. How did the defendant respond to that?
Defendant, I woke up at 5:30, killed me.
And what time was that response?
That was at 10:48 a.m.
How did the person respond to him?
Haha, geez, that sounds horrible.
And then at 10:50 a.m. on June 18, 2014, how did the defendant respond?
Defendant states, well, I have a son. That Joker decided that, hey, I'm going to get up early.
Okay. So 10:50 a.m. If it were asserted that, or somebody said that this message was before the defendant dropped Cooper off, would that be correct or incorrect?
Incorrect.
So it was actually after.
Correct.
After he talked about having a son and that Joker decided to get him up early, how did the person respond?
Haha, oh, gotta love kids.
Then how did the defendant respond?
LOL, yeah.
Did the person ask the defendant a question then at 11:14 a.m.?
The person states, how old is he? Question mark, question mark.
And then how did the defendant respond?
2.
What did the other person respond back to him?
Oh, what a great age.
And then how did he respond at 11:17 a.m.?
He's awesome.
So 11:17 a.m. Do you remember about what time the defendant left to go to lunch?
Not too long after.
Okay. And did that other person respond back at 11:17 on the last page of that?
They said, I bet. Smiley face.
Okay, I'm going to show now what's been previously shown to defense counsel as State's Exhibit 630. Ask you to take a look at State's Exhibit 630. Again, you recognize that as a report from a conversation between the defendant and a participant via whisper known or screen name Housewife 0127.
Yes.
Okay, and is this on January 24th, 2014?
Yes,
Okay? And is this a fair and accurate report of the conversation you had with that person?
it appears so.
Your Honor, I tender State's Exhibit 630.
Same objections.
Same ruling, admitted over objection.
Now, this post says, "I'm seriously thinking about leaving my husband right now. We're separated and I don't see him making an effort to fix things. I love him, but damn, I deserve better than having to deal with his BS." How did the defendant respond to that at 12:33 p.m. on that day?
That sucks.
And how did the other person respond to him?
Yeah, I'm just tired of being stressed out and pissed off all the time.
How did the defendant respond to that with the next two messages?
Get a divorce? I might.
And did the person ask him a question?
Housewife, why are you thinking about it?
How did he respond?
I'm a cheater.
And what does that other person say?
Oh,
How does he respond?
yeah.
Then what does she respond?
Housewife 0127, I think I'd kill my husband if he cheated on me.
How does the defendant respond?
I'm addicted to sex.
How does she respond, and what does she ask him?
Like, seriously addicted? Or you just like it so much you say that?
And what did he say?
No addicted?
And he used some profanity on the next page.
I'd fuck you if you wanted. I love it.
Mhm.
See, I'm terrible.
And what does she say in response?
Well, I love sex and want it all the time, but I've never cheated. Do you need to go to a group to get help with your addiction, with your addiction? Or are you just not happy because you're not getting enough?
Did the defendant respond after that at all?
You did not.
I'm going to turn your attention now to State's Exhibit 632, which has already been shown to the jury. I think we get about 4 more of these. Looking at State 632, this is a message between the defendant and a whisper user by the name of, I'm going to spell it Sunniche.
Yes,
Okay, and was this from March the 6th, 2014?
it was.
Okay, and this is a fair and accurate report of what was the chat message between the defendant and this user.
Yes.
Your Honor, I tender State's Exhibit 632 at this time, subject to all the defendant's other objections previously.
Same objection.
Admitted over objection.
Now, Detective, this whisper says, "I buck my problems away." Well, not away, just sex keeps me from grieving. How did the defendant respond to that whisper?
Sex makes me feel better.
How did the user respond?
Me too.
And then how did the defendant respond at 10:19 a.m.?
I'm cheating when I do it, but fucking seems to solve most, if my anxiety.
Okay. How did the other persons respond to that?
See, I stay out of relationships for that reason, but yeah, any more added stress and I'll fucking pop.
Okay, then what does the defendant say after that about his lives?
Oh, I keep my two lives separate.
And what does she ask this other user?
Must be a long-term relationship.
How does the defendant respond?
It is, but I'm addicted to using sex with strangers to make me sane.
And how does the user respond in the next two messages?
He doesn't fill that void for you. You might want to try role play at IDK. It just sounds like some insanity waiting to happen.
And how does he respond?
She doesn't.
How does the user then respond?
Well, I understand. I did that once just to keep myself sane as well. And it was some major BS when it came out.
And the next message, what does he say?
Yeah, I keep the BS far, far away.
Okay, and we don't have to read the last couple of statements he makes, but those are just something about the sexual connotations.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to show you what's been previously marked and shown to Defense Counsel at State's Exhibit 634. Sorry. Looking at 634, is that a message, conversation between the defendant from his phone and a user participant by the name of KIKA?
Yes.
Okay, and is that a fair and accurate printout of the conversation with that user?
It appears so.
Your Honor, I tender State's Exhibit 634.
Same objections.
Admitted over objection.
Now, this whisper that he responded to states, "Need a new guy, bud, to talk to, 21F Marietta." How does the defendant respond to that?
Hi, Kika. K-I-K-A, Kika.
And how does he respond?
Hey, hey.
How does he respond?
What's up, madam?
Going on down to about, look at 9:01:52, just to kind of speed up this process. What does he say to her in the midst of their conversation?
LOL, tell my woman that, haha.
How does she respond?
You have a girl?
And what does he say?
I do. Is that okay?
And how does she respond in the next two messages?
Yep. Better for me, exclamation point.
Okay, and this is on March 30th, 2014, correct?
Correct.
Now at 9:31 p.m., how does he respond?
LOL, why better for you? Question mark.
And then on the next page, does he make another statement? At the top at 10:11 p.m.
I'm kind of jealous.
Okay. I'm sorry, I think I
You skipped a page.
skipped a page. I sure did. Okay, let's go back to page 2. Sorry about that. Looking at 10:03 p.m., about 2/3 of the way down, the KIKA person asked him a question.
How long have you been with your girl?
And how does he respond?
7 years.
Then does he ask her a question?
You're single? Question mark.
How does she respond?
Whoa, 7, question mark, exclamation point, awesome. Yes, I am.
And then how does he respond on the top of the next page at 10:11 p.m.?
I'm kind of jealous.
Does she ask a question?
Why?
And what does he say about that?
My bad side wants to be single sometimes,
Next statement he makes.
but it is what it is.
How does she respond?
Yeah, I just got out of a 5-year relationship. It was hard, but for the best.
And how does he respond?
I see.
Now, does she respond then again at 10:19 p.m.?
So I have no choice but to be single, LOL.
And what does he say?
I understand.
Does she then ask him another question about his living situation?
Yep, so y'all live together, question mark?
How does he respond to that?
Although I'm not a sex-crazed maniac, I do have my moments, but I kind of lead a double life.
And then does he make another statement?
We do.
Does she ask him another question?
A double life, question mark?
And what does the defendant say at that
She
point?
doesn't know I whisper.
And does the KIKA person then respond with 2 more statements?
Yes. LOL, that sounds silly. And what do you do in whisper, question mark?
And for the rest of this conversation, they go on having conversations about random things and things of that nature,
Mhm.
sexual
Yes.
conversation toward the end.
Yes.
Finally, I'm going to turn your attention to State's Exhibit 633. Looking at State's Exhibit 633, is that a conversation between the defendant and participant Blonde Bombshell on the 7th of March 2014?
It is.
Okay. And is this a fair and accurate printout of the conversation between that participant and the defendant?
It is.
Your Honor, I would tender State's Exhibit 633 at this time.
Same objections, including relevance and everything that we argued before.
All right. Noted, submitted our objection.
The post, this whisper post says, "I'm sure your God is very proud of you for giving up Starbucks for a month." How does the defendant respond to that at 2:44 p.m. on the 7th of March?
Awesome.
How does that user respond?
Haha, I know, right? I hate that whisper is the only place I can post that because all the religious people will freak out when I'm on Facebook, Instagram.
And how does the defendant respond?
I'm religious, but fuck giving up something for Lent.
How does she respond?
Right. I feel like people have completely diluted the concept of it. I'm not religious, but I was raised Southern Baptist.
How does he respond to that?
I'm the lead guitar player at church. I'm not giving up shit.
And then does she respond in the next 2 statements?
Around here, are you even near me? Haha. My brother is a worship leader.
And how does the defendant respond to that?
I'm in Marietta.
What does she say?
Oh, dynamite.
And then how does he respond?
You?
And how does she respond?
I'm in Snellville.
Starting the next page, what is the defendant's next 2 statements he makes to her?
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm a church guitar player, but I can lead somewhat of a double life.
And does she ask him a question?
How so?
What does he say?
I'm too naughty for my own good.
And then does he give some kind of emoji?
Some kind of emoji.
Is that a colon and a backslash?
It looks like //
// okay. And then does he then ask a question at 2:54 p.m.?
Yes, yeah, I scared you away, frowny face.
Does she actually respond about 5 minutes later?
No, I was just getting ready for work, sorry.
Does she then actually make another statement or ask him a couple of other questions?
And so what are you afraid of, the church judging you or God?
What does he say?
Neither. I just know I lead quite a double life.
And does she ask him or say anything else to him?
Oh, you posted it as if you found it problematic.
How does he respond?
Oh, it is, but I love it.
And what does she say after that? Does she ask him a question?
Yes, so why do you believe it's a problem?
And how does he respond?
Well, I'm not very single.
Does she ask him a question?
And, question mark?
And what does he say?
You don't see an issue, question mark, smiley face emoji?
And then what does he say after that? Or she say, sorry?
She says, you can be in a relationship and still be able to do your job properly, so no.
And how does he respond at 3:08 p.m.?
I do everything perfect, but my secret life is very secret.
How does she respond?
Still doesn't sound like much of a problem to me.
Okay. Does he then ask her a question?
Do you lead the same life?
And how does she respond?
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same with everyone. I withhold certain things from certain people, but that's for their own good, and I really have no problem with it.
Okay. And then does he, excuse me, does he make a statement to her?
He does.
Okay. And what does he say?
So tell me a secret.
And does she then say something to him?
Yes. Well, like my parents don't know who I slept with, but it's my sex life, and they don't need to know. Nor do they need to know how many drugs I've done in the past or that I've been arrested.
Let me make sure I've got this right. How does he respond to that at 3:16 p.m.?
None of my other life know about my sex life.
And does she respond to that?
See, and it's not really their business unless they ask. It's compartmentalizing your life, I'm sorry. And it's not a bad thing.
Okay, and how did he respond to that?
Like I drove an hour the other night. A friend blew me. I drove home. Nobody knows.
And then does she respond?
Exactly. They don't need to.
Does he respond?
I still can't believe she did that.
Now, at 3:24 p.m., what statement does the user Blonde Bombshell, make to him?
Well, that's great. I really don't care. I just wanted to discuss moral ambiguity, but I think you just want to talk about sex.
Okay, and what are the last three statements that he makes?
I don't actually. It's my caveat, though. But I like the idea that someone else is accepting my moral ambiguity.
Does he say my, or how?
But I like the idea someone else is accepting of moral ambiguity.
Now, when you got the iPhone, the defendant's iPhone as well, you did this extraction, things of that nature. Did you also go back physically onto the phone to take photographs of what, regardless of what they could pull off from inside the phone, what actually was on the face of it or what you could see on the phone? Okay.
I did.
Okay, and did you actually photograph what you did as far as looking at the phone to see what you could see on the face of it?
I did.
And Your Honor, so the jury, don't worry, I'm not going to go through all these with them, but for the record, I'm going to show the defendant what's been marked as State's Exhibits 440 up until 522. Then we skip 3 numbers, and then from 526 to 600. Detective, have you already looked at all these?
Yes.
Okay, and having reviewed them, are those fair and accurate photographs of the defendant's phone that you took physically when you looked at it and examined it?
Yes.
Okay, and around when was it that you actually took those photographs and examined his physical phone?
It was after the PC hearing. I don't have the exact date written down. I'm sorry.
So it was much longer after the actual extraction and all the scientific stuff?
Yeah, it was towards the end of July and early August.
Okay, and when you did that, did you have it on airplane mode to
Yes.
ensure nothing was, it didn't get internet service and things like that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, Your Honor, I would tender these exhibits at this time.
Just the objections regarding
gonna go through, the Elmo. Make it easier for the jury, I'm just gonna use this little Elmo thing over here to put the photographs up, and while we're getting it set up, I'll go ahead and start pulling some of these photographs. Okay, Detective, well, we're working on that. We can show you 447, 448, 449, and 450. Are these photographs, can you tell the jury what's depicted in those photographs as far as phone calls and numbers called and dates and times and things of that nature?
First one, it's under recess, Leanna Harris, wife. It shows a missed phone call, June 18, 2014, 3:49 p.m., missed. It shows the number. And it's got some other personal information at the bottom.
Okay, so that would be on the defendant's phone, so he had a missed call from Leanna Harris at that time.
Yes.
Okay. The next photo?
And then on the next photo, it's Leanna Harris. It says wife again, June 18, 2014, 4:24 p.m., canceled. 4:04 p.m., outgoing call, 1 minute. 3:54 p.m., outgoing call, 4 seconds.
So basically on that, it shows, like the defendant's phone records, at 3:54, he tried to place a call after 4 seconds, hung up, and then at 4:04, there was an outgoing call that lasted a minute.
Objection, leading.
Assistant.
What does it reflect regarding 4:04? Was
At
it ingo-
4:04?
Incoming or outgoing call from the defendant's phone?
It's an outgoing call, 1 minute.
Okay, and then finally, at 4:24, what does that show depicting any phone calls to Leanna Harris?
It shows canceled.
All right. Now, looking at the next exhibit,
It shows June 18, 2014, once again, it's Leanna Harris, wife, June 18, 2014, 4:25 p.m., missed.
so a call missed to this phone, defendant's phone from Leanna Harris at 4:25.
Correct.
Okay, and finally 4:50.
At 4:50, it shows the Home Depot, June 18, 2014, 4:25 p.m. outgoing call, 5 minutes. 4:25 p.m. outgoing call, 26 seconds.
And is that the same, is that reflected as well in the records that we've already seen?
It is.
We'll publish 447. I think I can do this upside down. So basically, do we see it right here? Can the jury, can y'all see that? See this photograph? Okay, good. I don't have that back with them. It's got a little glare on it, but showing, I'm just publishing State's Exhibit 447, the phone call at 3:49 that was missed. Publishing 448. Showing the phone calls at 3:54, 4:04, and a canceled phone call at 4:24. State's Exhibit 449, publishing, which is again reflecting the 425 missed call from Leanna Harris to the defendant's phone. And finally, 450,
Judge, I'm going to object. This board is just testifying. There's not any questions here.
just identifying the photograph I'm showing to the jurors. And State's Exhibit 450, showing the Home Depot phone calls. Okay, Detective, when you were going through the phone go to. To states 587. Did you actually take a picture of, actually I've got that listed wrong. Not 587. .583. Okay. Did you, looking at States Exhibit 583, did you take a photograph of how the phone looked regarding messages with Leanna leading right up until the last text message he got from her that day?
Yes,
Okay. And is that reflected in States Exhibit 583?
it does appear so.
Okay. I'm gonna publish this to the jury. And when he received this text at 10:49 a.m. on Wednesday, June 18th, that says "Get to work," what is the message right above it? Whose
Can I
name is
step in?
mentioned?
Can I step down?
Yes, if the judge is okay with it. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Right above where there's a text message, "Get to work okay," from Leanna to the defendant at 10:49 a.m. Whose name is right there above it from a previous message?
Cooper?
Okay, you can have your seat again. Okay, we talked about the Evernote record. Did you also find it physically on the phone, that note that he had written in his phone?
I did.
Show you the marked and admitted as States Exhibits 528, 529, 530, and 531. Excuse me, I'm sorry. 529, 530, and 531. Showing you those are all photographs regarding the note made on June 15th, 2014.
Yes.
Publish that briefly to the jury. That's States 529. States 530. And States 531. Detective, also, when you look through the phone, did you also try to photograph the presence or absence of any types of applications or things like that that may have been used, including Kick and Whisper and things of that nature?
I did.
To show you States Exhibits 465 through 467. States Exhibit 510. And States Exhibits 593 through 599. Okay, showing you all of these exhibits. Will you look through them briefly and just tell me if those are all photographs that you took of the phone that depicted how the applications appeared on the face of the phone and when you went into certain folders and things of that nature?
It does.
Okay. Officer, if I could get you, detective, sorry, get you to step down to discuss this with the jury. Publishing 593, is this a general overview of the applications and things like that, things that you can utilize on the cell phone as you saw them back when you took pictures in 2014?
It is.
Okay. Is it stuff like weather, messages, just general things on this page?
Correct.
Publishing States Exhibit 594. Is that just another photograph you took of the same screen?
Correct.
Okay. Publishing 595. What is located in that?
Contacts, calculator, maps, Apple Store, extras.
Okay. Is that like another folder that you go into and you see these other apps?
Correct.
Publishing 596. And what is that? Is that another folder with a title?
Finance,
And under finance, what type of apps do you see?
Nationwide, Fine Branch, Co-op.
597 is this further financing. Are those all financially related type applications?
There.
Now 598, is this a shot of if you scroll right, the different, is it swipe?
If you swipe, you go to the second screen.
Okay. And then is that now you see folders with different types of topics and folders, other applications within them?
Correct.
Okay. 599, is that another photograph, basically, just a little bit different angle of the same screen?
It appears.
510, what does that appear to be?
Ninth hour.
Okay. And what was within ninth hour?
Oh, Basecamp Hangouts, FreshBooks, Ninth Hour, Dev Hello Sign, SBB, just different QuickBooks.
And the Hangouts out there, is that something, a tool that he used to communicate, we've already heard about, with people that were involved in ninth hour development with him?
Yes.
And ninth hour, does this appear to be related to his, I guess, business on the side they were trying to start?
Correct.
Okay, now showing you 465 within folder media. We see different things like Netflix, music, and things of that nature, and Bible, guitar chords. 466, also in media.
iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, 4Track, Pandora, Nook, Chromecast, Drive.
And then finally, in States 467, is that just another group of things found in media?
Correct.
Okay. Detective, you can have your seat. Now, with any of these, were you able to locate the application for an app for Kick or Whisper or anything like that?
Not at the time.
Okay.
The photos were taken.
Detective, since that time, have you reviewed that phone physically?
I have.
Did you actually locate those applications?
Yes.
Where were they and why did you not see them the first time?
They're under a separate screen. They're under a separate file that says weather. So there's actually two weather apps. It's under the second one. It doesn't have a little mark saying it's multiple folders. If you open it and then swipe left, it opens a whole nother folder which has the Kick and it's got the Kick, the Whisper, possibly Scout. I don't remember Scout's in there, but Kick and Whisper in it.
So he had these apps hidden in his phone under a different heading as weather.
System.
Where were these things? Obvious to plain sight or hidden?
They're hidden.
Meeting,
That is not leading, Judge.
Edward, you can ask.
You can answer.
Hidden.
Okay. Detective, I'm going to show you what's been marked, or actually admitted, as States Exhibit 226. First of all, looking at States Exhibit 226, is this the phone we've been talking about, the iPhone?
Yes.
That was turned over to your custody by Sergeant Thorpe, I believe it was, after it had been taken from Piper.
Yes.
Okay, and is that, in that bag, did you also, in addition to the phone in this case, add anything else that you collected from the defendant during your interview?
on the phone cord.
Okay. And is it, all both of those things, are they all in the same or similar condition as the last time you seen it?
Fair.
Okay. Now, detective, I'm gonna ask you to take out the phone, if you can power it up. And as it's powering up, does the defendant have a passcode? And did he give you a passcode to get in that allowed you to physically go in and view the phone?
He did.
Okay. And what was that passcode?
052706.
And was that, did he give you that at the first of the interview, or did he say anything different when you interviewed him initially?
Later on in the interview.
All right. Now, is it powered on?
It is powered on.
Okay. If you can open it up. All right. I'm going to ask you to step down and show the jury on the Elmo. Could you go ahead and type in his passcode? Okay. I can show the jury as it appears. Let's see if we can focus that. I'll zoom it in a little bit. Go back. Go back. Okay. All right, look at these applications. Is this the first screen of the cell phone?
It is.
Okay. Could you go ahead and swipe one way? Okay, and what do we see here? Is there anything regarding the weather stuff on this page?
Yeah, and there's a second weather app up here.
Okay. Looking at that weather folder, is that where you found the hidden apps?
Yes.
Okay, could you go into that folder? It's photography.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Or photography again.
All right. Weather.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, so a second page in weather, and what do we see here? What are these different apps?
Kick, Whisper, Gmail, Scout, Google Voice, and Snapchat.
Okay. Kick, did it require a passcode, or could you get into it?
I believe Kick was open and Whisper was password protected. I haven't been into this in a while.
Okay. Were you able to even get into the Whisper physically with a passcode, or were you not?
No.
Okay. But you had the records from actually pulling this phone?
Yeah, we actually had the Whisper records and everything from looking at earlier.
Okay. Thank you. You can have your seat.
phone detective?
I do.
Can I see that, please?
Yes, sir.
You were the initial lead detective on this case as early as June the 18th, 2014.
That's correct.
Okay, so it's been 28 months. Does that sound about right?
That's about right.
Okay. In that 28 months, have you located any witness to whom Ross expressed malice or hatred toward his son Cooper?
No, sir.
You have found lots of evidence that he was unfaithful.
That's correct.
And that evidence came from not only things that you recovered from his phone, but witnesses you spoke to as well.
That's correct.
I want to talk to you a little bit, first of all, about the nature of the relationship between Ross and Cooper. You would agree that that is a primary area of investigation in any murder case. You want to find out about the relationship between the deceased and the charged, right?
That's true.
Okay. So in this case, you looked into defects.
We did.
Okay. In fact, you actually had a defects agent on the scene.
We did.
What was her name?
Devin Jones.
Okay. Had you worked with her before?
I had.
And she was called to the scene just because it was a child death, right?
That is correct.
And she looked, and you followed up and determined that there had been no prior defects cases, right?
Yes, sir.
So, in trying to determine the relationship of the parties here, we know that Cooper would have spent a lot of his time at Little Aprons
Correct.
because he was there during the week, during the day while his parents worked.
Correct.
So, you interviewed the daycare workers at Little Aprons.
I did.
And there were quite a few of them. Karima Fletcher, Azure Hawkins, Melanie Gibson, Kenyatta Patrick, Michelle Gray. Can you think of any others?
Terrell Dudley.
We'll get back to him. And what you learned in speaking with them was that Ross was a very caring and loving father.
That was the general opinion, yes.
They expressed to you that Ross would most often be the one to drop off in the morning.
Yes, they did.
And you learned that he wasn't a drop-and-go parent. He actually came into the room often and sat down on the floor and got Cooper together and spent a few minutes with him.
I don't recall that exact phrase, but yes.
You certainly didn't learn from any of the daycare workers at Little Aprons that there had been any suspicion of abuse or neglect of Cooper.
No, none of the Little Apron workers said anything about abuse or neglect.
Okay. And you would have specifically asked them about that.
Yes.
What about the neighbor, Joey Nesbitt? Did you speak to her, or did one of your detectives speak to her?
I believe one of my detectives spoke with her.
And she was often in the home and often babysat Cooper.
Correct.
And what you learned from her was...
Objection, hearsay.
Who interviewed her?
I'd have to review my report.
Okay. Was it you?
No.
It was not you.
Joey Nesbitt, no.
And Judge, I don't object no matter who interviewed her, it's still hearsay.
Was it Detective Murphy?
We can ask her anything.
Once again, I'd have to review the report.
investigator?
I am
You told us the other day, kind of like the ringmaster of the circus.
very true.
And that's not just at the scene, that's over the entirety of the case.
True.
Okay. You're kind of responsible for knowing what everybody's doing in the case, right?
That's true.
And that would include the detectives that are working with and for you as they're going out interviewing witnesses as well.
And that's correct. That's why the detectives, we do reports. Reports all go in one central report. Of course, they do supplements. They do supplements to the main report, and then just kind of the report grows from there.
Are you aware that the neighbor Joey Nesbitt was interviewed?
It sounds familiar, but once again, I'd have to review my notes.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's just kind of cut to it here. You've got a big binder, and that I'm assuming contains all of the reports that you
All
received.
supplements, yes, sir.
Yeah. If there was anything that had been, any of the detectives had determined from their investigation, that there was any suspicion, any history of abuse or neglect, that would be reflected in your file and you would know about that.
We would hope so.
You didn't find anything like that in your investigation in this case.
Besides the actual death?
You know what I'm asking about.
No, I don't. Can you please be clear on your question?
Okay. You didn't find any history of abuse or neglect by Ross, did you?
By history, no one reported to me any history of abuse or neglect.
And you didn't find any?
Once again, I think no one, I'm going to keep it at, no one reported to me any abuse or neglect.
Okay. You're not testifying to us about any? You don't have anything to share with us?
Except the whispers and the chats and stuff that we went through already.
All right. So your testimony is that whisper and chats, things he was typing on his phone, constitute abuse or neglect?
It led up to the death of Cooper.
All right, let's talk about objective evidence regarding the nature of the relationship between Ross and Cooper.
Okay.
In interviewing a number of people, again, we've got the folks at the daycare in particular. Now, of course, most of them have testified. You also spoke to, or one of the detectives would have spoken with coworkers.
Correct.
Okay. Is there anybody else that you can think of that y'all interviewed in your investigation of the nature of the relationship between Ross and Cooper?
No.
Okay. And is it fair to say that what you learned through interviewing these people was generally that Ross loved Cooper? He bragged on him and he spent time with him.
That was their general opinion, yes.
Okay. And you learned that Ross would even participate in events at the Little Aprons, such as dressing up as the Tool, going over there to spend time with Cooper in that regard, being involved in the special events such as the Halloween carnivals, things like that.
That's correct.
You're aware that we've had some pictures that show Ross bringing his dad over to kind of show Cooper off at the Little Aprons.
I believe so.
You learned that it wasn't uncommon. Sometimes Ross would actually just drop by Little Aprons during the day, just to visit with Cooper, see how he was, or have lunch with him.
That is correct.
Okay. I want to show you, right, 19, this is offense 19. You've seen this.
I have,
Okay. And you agree that that's Ross and Cooper together?
I do.
Okay. And here, this is, states 21, this is from the, What in the World Happened Today. Have you seen this before?
I have,
Okay, and you agree that, that dressed up as the tool there is also Ross?
I believe so.
Okay. And Defense 70, you've seen this before?
I have,
Okay. And you would agree that from the extraction report, you know that this is a photograph that Ross took of Cooper on June 11, 2018?
I do.
And you know that this was taken at Little Athens during the day?
I believe so. I'm not sure where it was taken, but it was on his phone.
Ross texted this to his wife on June 11.
He did, but more importantly, with this photograph, if you look at the gallery where that photograph comes from, there is a picture of his exposed erect penis also on the same screen as the picture of his son sleeping.
I know that you're interested in talking about Ross's sexual endeavors, but what I'm asking you about right now is the nature of the relationship between Ross and Cooper.
I
Okay?
think that shows it, because if your son's picture is on the gallery, so on the phone, on the gallery, is a picture of his sleeping son. It's a beautiful picture. But on that same gallery, there's a picture of his exposed, erect penis in a turgid state. On the same gallery, the same page, when you go through his phone, it says double life.
You done?
I'm sorry, is that a
You
question?
you finished with your
I am done, sir.
Speech?
Thank you.
Okay. You know that Ross took her to Chick-fil-A on occasion, right?
I do.
And would you agree that taking your son to breakfast, spending time with him, would demonstrate the nature of the relationship between the two of them?
Yes, sir, I would.
It demonstrates perhaps a parent who wants to spend a little time with his son when he can.
Yes, sir, it does.
And you're aware that on the 18th, the manager, Chris Redmond, had seen them together in the Chick-fil-A that morning.
That's correct.
Did you interview Chris Redmond?
I did interview Chris Redmond.
Okay. And he expressed to you what he observed as well.
That's correct.
And we know from his testimony and from when you interviewed him, what he explained was that he observed father and son appeared to enjoy spending time together.
I think that's fair.
And when we're talking about the nature of the relationship between Ross and Cooper, you also made inquiry, not just you, but the other detectives who were assisting you, Detective Racy and Murphy and Stockinger, whomever. They also asked of some of the other women that Ross had been in communication with. They asked very specifically questions about the nature of the relationship between Ross and Cooper. Isn't that true?
That is very true.
Certainly, we've heard from Chelsea Doster, and I mean, she gave us herself what it was that that Ross expressed to her, and you don't disagree that as far as the nature of the relationship between Ross and Cooper, what Chelsea Doster expressed was that Ross loved his son.
Yes.
Okay. And it's fair to say, however long their online relationship was. Ross had never said a cruel or unkind thing about Cooper. And you don't recall anything like that, do you?
I do not recall.
And of course, we heard from Jane Meadows, who Ross had been speaking with for even longer, over a year. And Detective Murphy interviewed her, right?
I believe so.
Did you ever interview her?
No.
Okay. And of course, she's testified, and we heard what she had to say as well. And as far as the nature of the relationship between Ross and Cooper, you agree that what she observed was consistent?
Object, Judge, at this point, if he's gonna keep going into statements of people that have already testified, I believe that's hearsay at this point. You can ask about information he's found, things like that, but if he's going into what people have already said, that's hearsay.
I'm just talking about his investigation. If all of these, if all of the information he gathered during his investigation regarding the nature of the relationship was consistent from witness to witness.
Thank you.
And you would agree with that, what you learned during your investigation in interviewing Jane Meadows on a couple occasions, Detective Murphy or whoever interviewed her, was consistent with what you'd heard from everybody else. He loved that baby more than anything. Wouldn't do anything to hurt Cooper. Was his pride and joy. Couldn't imagine a life without Cooper. That was the information you received, wasn't it?
Yes.
And the information in investigating the nature of the relationship between Ross and Cooper, is it fair to say that his co-workers expressed similar type sentiments? Ross would brag. He would brag about Cooper. He'd show photographs, things of that nature.
Yeah, Ross would talk about, or the defendant would talk about Cooper.
I want to go into a couple things real quick that we talked about this morning while it's still fresh on our mind. Now, you identified where these applications were on Ross's phone.
Yes, sir.
Kick and Whisper,
That's correct.
and they were under a what appeared to be a weather app.
That's correct.
Okay. And so you would agree, and there's no doubt Ross was running around on his wife, right?
Correct, sir.
There's no question about that.
No.
Okay. And you would agree, there's no question that Ross didn't want his wife to know about that. Is
True.
that true?
Very true.
Okay. And so what we saw on his phone would you agree would be a way that Ross might could prevent her from seeing these things?
Yes.
But he didn't delete those apps on the 18th, did he?
He did not.
That Kick app was still on his phone.
Correct.
The Whisper app was still on his phone. He did not delete them, did he?
No.
He had a gallery of images in the thousands that included lots of very graphic, filthy sexual images. Isn't that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. And he didn't delete those on the 18th either, did he?
No.
They were all there.
I won't say they were all there, but there was
Thousands.
thousands.
Mhm.
We're still there.
And as a matter of fact, on the 18th, through these applications, in particular what we've been talking about the past 2 days, Whisper and Kick, he added to the filth on the 18th, didn't he?
Yes, sir.
Okay. On the 18th, on that Kick app, which he did not delete from his phone, he had all kind of communications with other women that morning and throughout the day, including the exchange of sexual images
Yes, sir.
and graphic sexual language.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you agree that in fact one of those communications on the morning of the 18th with a woman by the name of Elizabeth Smith. That morning, he actually asked her to hook up that very day.
I believe it was Elizabeth Smith. I'd have to review, but yes.
Okay. But you would agree that, and just to make clear, Elizabeth Smith was the one who Ross had previously hooked up with and had a tryst in his car.
Correct.
Okay. And that morning, he contacted her again and asked if she could come and do that to him again.
I believe it was her.
Okay? Detective Stoddard, you certainly would agree that planning a hookup to get fellatio in your car during the day is inconsistent with someone who was going to murder their child in their car the same day, isn't it?
I don't think it said in his car. He was just trying to hook up.
Okay. But when they hooked up previously, it had been in the car.
Yes.
And in fact, that chat, they talked about that very fact, that it had been in the car.
I believe so.
And you certainly would agree that if he wanted to, on the 18th, Ross could have deleted his Whisper app, he could have deleted the Kick app, he could have deleted all of those images that were on his phone.
True.
He gave you the passcode to get into his phone.
The second time I asked, yes.
All right, well, let's deal with that.
Okay.
The first time he asked, what was it he told you?
He started to give a passcode. I believe he started to give a passcode, and then he said it was biometric.
Okay. And biometric meaning what?
Fingerprint,
All right. And in fact, that phone is biometric, isn't it?
possibly, I'm not sure.
You don't know?
Don't know.
Okay. It was during the same interview, just, I get probably less than an hour later, he gave you the code to get into his phone.
Yes, sir.
I want to ask you about a piece of evidence that you identified this morning. Okay. This is State's Exhibit 5. Can you tell if that's 528 or 529?
Sir, I would say it's in here.
Okay.
528 or 529, I'm
I
not
can
sure.
show what this is. I remembered it. Probably my fault.
That's a 529.
Okay, thank you. Got clear? Yeah. Manu 529.
Yes, sir.
This is the screenshot from the Evernote that was on his phone, right?
That's correct.
Right. And I believe your testimony was, and what is the date that Evernote was created?
It's not on here.
Hmm?
I believe it was on the 15th. It'd be that Sunday.
Okay.
But it's not on this one here, sir. I'd have to review. But it was in June, I believe.
Right. And was your testimony of direct just a moment ago that what this Evernote indicates is desire is greater than sin, is greater than death?
Correct.
Okay. That's what you believe that says?
Yes.
Okay. You aware what church Ross goes to?
Stonebridge?
Okay. Did you contact the pastor, David Eldridge, and discuss with him what that sermon was all about?
I did not.
Did not?
I did not.
What the exhibit demonstrates is the word desire, and then a slash and an arrow, the word sin, slash and an arrow, and the word death. That's what it shows, right?
Or it shows a slash greater than, but yes, I'll agree, it could also be an arrow.
Well, in fact, if it was greater than, it wouldn't have that little slash in front of it, would it?
It could.
Isn't it possible, since you didn't speak to David Eldridge, we'll have to just kind of go out on a limb here, but isn't it possible that what this sermon actually was about was the fact that desire leads to sin, and sin leads to spiritual death? Isn't that what it actually means?
It could.
I want to talk to you a little bit about the scene. You had a number of reports from not only witnesses, first responders, such as police, fire, EMS, and civilians, right?
Correct.
And what you learned during your investigation is that there were a lot of reports that Ross was behaving hysterically and screaming.
Correct.
And you learned from some of the witnesses there that he attempted to give CPR.
Correct.
And there were a number of statements that we heard about and that we learned about, you learned about through your investigation that Ross made on the scene during this period of time, such as, "This is my fault, what have I done? I've killed my son's gone, I can't believe I did this."
Correct.
And part of the, you had reports from Officer Gallimore and Officer Foglia, which, fair to say, back that up, is that correct?
Fair to say.
You're aware that when Officer Foglia and Gallimore first arrived, they were attempting to do some life-saving measures.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you also aware that Officer Foglia shooed Ross back away from the scene?
I don't think she specifically said she shooed Ross back.
What about ordered or directed everybody back?
She did order everybody back.
Okay. You were aware that Ross was detained
He was.
within moments of Officer Piper arriving,
Yes, sir.
and he was placed in handcuffs,
He was.
and he was placed in Officer Piper's cruiser, and he was moved off away a little bit from his vehicle.
Correct.
You didn't see Ross's emotional outburst when he was in Piper's vehicle, did you?
No.
And we saw a video where there's some screaming and wailing that was going on at some point in time when he was in that car.
Yes, sir.
You didn't see that?
Not at the scene, no.
Okay. But you know what happened,
Yes,
because you saw it in the video.
correct.
And so it's fair to say, it doesn't mean that he didn't have an emotional reaction in the car. You just didn't see it because you weren't there at the time looking at him when it happened,
I did not see him have an emotional reaction.
until you saw it on the video.
I did see something on the video. It was him yelling and screaming. It's similar to other episodes where I've seen him yelling and screaming I don't believe is an emotional outburst.
Objectively, what we see is Ross having an outburst. Objectively, that's what we see.
Objectively, we see him yelling and screaming, yes.
You just don't believe it's true. That's the bottom line. You just don't believe it's true.
Or sincere, correct.
And so as far as what we see in the back of the police car then, if he had cried more or harder, would that make it more sincere to you?
If I saw actual evidence, then yes, I would.
Evidence like a video recording of it?
Evidence like tears coming out of your eyes. When we cry, our nose starts to run. If I saw evidence of that, if I saw evidence of anything on his shirt, then yes, I would be more likely to believe that an actual outburst had occurred.
You didn't see Ross pacing around on the phone trying to call Little Aprons to head Leanna off, did you?
No,
Okay. You weren't there to see him with his the phone up to his head and pacing around like the witnesses described, right?
no. The only report I got was that it appeared that he was talking to somebody on the phone.
You've seen the video from Piper's car.
I have, sir.
You've heard the video from Piper's car.
I have.
You heard him screaming, and you saw him pacing around. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
And that's consistent with what a lot of the other witnesses conveyed to y'all during your investigation.
That's correct.
Again, by the time you got there, Ross was already in handcuffs in the back of Piper's car.
Yes, sir.
All right. You walked up to him,
I did.
and you had a brief conversation with him.
I did.
And what did you tell him?
I told Ross that he was being detained, that he was going to be taken up to headquarters, and we would talk up at headquarters and let him know how the investigation would proceed.
And at the time that you walked up to him, do you know how long he'd been in the car?
No, I did not.
And at that time, he wasn't wailing and screaming. He was under control, right?
That's correct.
And did you identify yourself as a detective?
I did.
Did you tell him that you'd be the one talking to him?
I did.
All right. And you certainly would agree that if Ross wanted to put on some kind of a show in front of you to demonstrate crocodile tears or fake remorse, that would have been a good opportunity for him to do it right there when the lead detective introduces himself.
Yes, sir.
He didn't do it, did he?
He did not.
What we see in the video is a period of time of him wailing and hollering out when nobody's in the car with him, nobody's standing outside the car right around him, correct?
Correct.
And we hear a lot of commotion at the time that Ross is being directed to get off the phone and ultimately handcuffed. We can hear that on the video, right?
Correct.
You weren't there during that.
I was not, sir.
Okay. But fortunately, we have a video that at least captured the audio portion.
That's correct.
And we've got reports from the officers as well.
Yes, sir.
And what you understand from your investigation is Ross was not being cooperative at that point in time, was it?
He was not.
In fact, is it fair to say that he lost his composure with Officer Folia or Piper?
That would be fair to say.
In fact, he used profanity with them,
He did.
and they used profanity with him.
They did.
Certainly not uncommon for there to be some level of chaos in an active scene like this, though, is there?
No.
Okay. It's almost par for the course. This is when it's intense these kind of sort of outbursts and interactions with law enforcement and the people involved, they happen.
They do.
Okay. They're high-stress situations.
They are.
Now, you previously testified that on July the 3rd, 2014, about what was going on there at the scene. And you would agree that certainly it's not unusual for someone who discovered the body of their child in such a way could very well be in shock,
Correct.
could be dazed,
Correct.
could be showing a range of emotions from outrage to just blankness.
Correct.
And you would agree that would be consistent with some of the information that your detectives got from the witnesses who were there at the scene?
Yes, it would be consistent with some of the information and some of the evidence we've seen.
Okay. It's fair to say Ross was all over the place there at the scene. Emotionally.
Emotionally, yes.
Is this a good time for a break?
It's fine with me.
I figure we're going to recess, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's all rise for the jury. Please watch your stuff going down.
We stand in recess.
step. Please be seated.
Take started. We left off talking a little bit about the scene.
Yes, sir.
That being the scene outside of Marlowe's. Objectively, the information that you received from all sources certainly appears that Ross was upset and emotional and screaming and pacing around and trying to make phone calls there at the scene.
That's what it appeared like, but he was actually on the phone.
And you would agree that there was also something very significant that occurred to Ross right there on the scene while he was going through this emotional outburst.
I'm sorry.
Something very significant happened to Ross during the very time he was going through this emotional outburst on the scene.
And what are you talking about, sir?
Can you think of anything that happened to him significant?
Are you talking before the police or after the police interaction?
I'm talking about the fact that Ross was handcuffed and detained and placed in the back of a police cruiser right at the time we were having this outburst that we all hear on the video.
Yes.
And you certainly would agree that getting handcuffed and placed in a police cruiser can create an attitude adjustment.
Yes,
It can be a very sobering thing.
it can be.
And here, apparently from what we've heard and in your investigation, Ross was so out of control at the scene that he had to be detained.
Yes.
Okay. He actually had to be removed from the scene. He had to be taken from where he was there near his car and driven handcuffed some 100 feet away.
Correct.
But you would agree that once they handcuffed him and he was placed in a car and driven from the scene a little bit, we go from this emotional state to a very sobered state.
I would agree.
And isn't that what police want and expect when they're dealing with someone on the scene who's disruptive?
It is.
You want to get their attention.
Correct.
Okay. A lot of times you use the word detained instead of the word arrested, right?
True.
Okay. And you can detain people for lots of reasons. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And what we've heard in this case, and from your investigation, what you understand is he was detained because he was disruptive,
Correct.
and it worked. It got him under control.
He was under control in the car.
Okay. Now, we heard a good bit of testimony already about Ross being in the cruiser away from his car and away from Cooper's body. And we can see some of that in some of the pictures that we've gotten in the video. But you were actually there on the scene.
I was.
Okay. And it's fair to say that the cruiser was probably 100 feet away or more.
Good estimate.
Okay. And it's also true that Piper's cruiser was facing away from the scene where Ross's vehicle and Cooper were.
That's also true. I'm sorry, I couldn't see.
I get that a lot. And if Piper's cruiser was facing forward and and Ross were seated in the back seat, you would agree that he would be looking, if he looked straight ahead, he would be looking away from, or in the opposite direction of where his truck was and where Cooper's body was.
That's correct.
And you know through your investigation, what we've seen, that Ross turned around to look out the back window. Right?
Correct.
While he was handcuffed, while he was in the cruiser, some 100 feet away.
Yes, sir.
And looking out the back window was looking in the direction of where the truck and his child were, right?
That is correct.
And you don't see anything suspicious about that, do you?
Suspicious as,
Well, isn't that a natural reaction if you are driven away from the scene where your child is deceased? Wouldn't it be a natural reaction to turn around and try to see what was going on?
possibly.
Or wouldn't it have been more remarkable if he just sat straight forward and never turned around?
No, I think that would have been,
That'd been weird, wouldn't it?
no, I don't think so.
So moments after he's discovered the deceased body of his child, he's cuffed, driven from the scene. You think it would have been a more normal response for him just to sit there looking forward instead of turning around, trying to see what was going on?
I do, because if he's in shock, if you just had a major emotional moment, the death of your child, I think a catonic state where you're sitting there just staring ahead would be normal.
Okay. So he should have been staring straight ahead.
I'm saying, I'm not going to comment, sir. I'm done, sir. I'm sorry.
Okay. You identified an exhibit this morning, 631, and just, there's a lot of this, so just to refresh your recollection, which one we're talking about.
Yes, sir.
All right, you know what that is?
Yep, it is Whisper.
And what, if you would just remind the jury, is this the whisper that he posted, or is this one that he responded to?
This is the one he responded to.
I can see that.
Yes, sir.
And you agree, we went over it kind of fast in your direct, and you agree the whisper, which was posted, said, having an extremely boring and slow day, can anyone help the time go by faster? Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
20-year-old female. Or 20F.
20th.
20F.
And during the exchange, you would agree that at 11:17 in the morning, let me make sure I've got my time right, I'm talking about the very bottom right there.
You're talking about he's awesome?
Uh-huh.
Yep, 11:17 a.m.
Right. So this is a whisper that he responds to on that day.
Yes, sir.
That very morning.
Correct.
At 11:17 in the morning, during this whisper, you agree, Ross indicates, well, I have a son. That joker decided that, hey, I'm going to get up early. Correct?
Correct.
And at some point, the other individual says, well, how old is he? Ross says 2. She says, oh, what a great age. And Ross says, he's awesome. Right?
Yeah, that last one says he's awesome.
That's at 11:17 that very morning.
Correct.
Now, you would agree that the expression, he's awesome, by Ross, you would agree that that is inconsistent with with malice or hatred for the individual he's talking about.
Yes, and that whisper, correct.
Kind of seems like he's just absolutely clueless that Cooper's out there in the car, doesn't it? That's what it looks like, doesn't it?
Or it could be a reminder that Cooper's out there in the car as he's talking about his son. It could go either way, sir.
Could go either way. Your way is that that should have reminded him that he forgot to drop Cooper off?
Yes,
And then the other way would be, that guy over there was absolutely clueless that his child was out in the car. That's the other way, right?
I believe it should be a reminder that your son's out in the car.
Is it your belief then that he had just forgotten that he had a child altogether?
No.
As part of this investigation, you asked for some assistance from the FBI,
I did.
okay? And did you share information with them?
I did.
Right, you had meetings with them and whatnot?
I did.
Right, and did they provide information back to you?
They did.
Right, did they provide you with a binder?
They did.
Okay. What was in that binder?
Articles.
Okay, what kind of articles?
Judge, I'm gonna object to relevance at this point. We've already discussed this issue before, and this is not relevant.
As part of his investigation, he said that he dealt with the FBI on the case, gave them information, they had meetings together. This is part of his investigation.
Doesn't make it admissible, doesn't make it not hearsay, Judge.
I'm allowed an objection.
What kind of articles were in that binder?
There are articles from David Diamond concerning different cases that he's testified on. I believe it was Kids in Cars. And forgive me if I'm saying it wrong, but it's a national organization that tracks kids in cars, deaths of kids in cars.
Okay.
And I
And-
think, we'll leave it at that.
All right. And how big was the binder?
It's thick,
More than an inch?
yes.
2 inches?
It's good more than an inch, sir.
Okay. And did you read the articles in there?
I did.
Okay. You said some of the articles were written by David Diamond?
Either about or by Dr. Diamond.
Okay. And you know that Dr. Diamond is involved in this case?
I do.
Okay. And in any of the articles, did you learn that he is a person that studies the very phenomenon of parents forgetting their children in cars?
I do.
Okay. What point in time did you get that binder?
It would have been after November 2015.
And did the articles in those binders that you reviewed as part of your investigation, did it discuss other cases where children were forgotten in cars?
Yes.
You testified on direct that you smelled an odor in Ross's truck. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, let's start with the scene.
Okay.
On the scene, did you get inside of the truck?
I don't recall putting my head inside the truck. I got up next to the truck while on the scene, though.
Okay. You got up next to it?
I got up next to the open door. Yes, sir.
All right. Did you put your head in there?
I don't recall.
All right. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibits 45 and 46. You agree that little Cooper was only about 36 inches away from the door frame?
Yes, sir.
Where were you standing?
I don't recall exactly where I was standing, but I had come up around Cooper to kind of peer in the car to see the configuration of the car and where everything was inside the car.
And you would agree that we're talking about a very small space, a very small area between the open door and where Cooper's covered up.
Agreed.
And you didn't smell anything on the scene?
No, sir. You
later got inside the car, what, 4 hours, 6 hours later?
Yeah, later on that night.
Later that night?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if the search warrant was at 10:20, that would have been roughly 6 hours later.
roughly.
And at that point in time, when you saw it, when you got in the car was in the evidence shed,
It was.
and you're aware that the car had been out there on the scene for more than an hour
Yes, sir.
with the door open
Correct.
and the air conditioner running,
Correct.
and you didn't smell anything then. You didn't smell anything then.
You're saying then on scene?
Mm-hmm.
No, I didn't smell anything on scene.
So then you come back to the shed, and you originally testified back in 2014, there was a foul odor that smelled like decomposition or death. All right? And you were talking about the car when it was in the shed, right?
That's correct.
But yesterday when you testified, you sort of, you kind of backed off that a little bit. You said, well, it's not really decomposition like scientifically, like a medical examiner would say decomposition or something of that nature.
Correct. And I'll explain that. When we go to a scene and you smell death, it's used interchangeably. Not the correct way to use it, because it deals with the actual body breaking down. But I would use it, say, I smell decomp or I smell death.
And your boss at that time was Lieutenant Farrell.
It was.
And you're aware that Lieutenant Farrell indicated that he smelled some sort of odor associated with death before he even stuck his head in the car,
Correct.
while he was right here at the scene.
Correct.
And are you aware that Lieutenant Farrell smelled gases coming off the body?
I'm not aware of his testimony.
You didn't smell gases coming off the body.
I didn't smell anything on the scene.
Okay. All right. And during your investigation, you learned that there were lots of responders right there in the same position that Lieutenant Farrell was, correct?
Correct.
Well, we know that there was, and we have a crime scene log if you need to refer to it, but just a couple of people that I want to go over. We know that there was a crime scene investigator, Shumpert,
True.
and you know through the reports and through your investigation that Shumpert was the one who was hands-on assisting the medical examiner right down here at the body
Correct.
for an extended period of time.
Correct.
Okay? And you're aware that he just smelled a diaper. You're aware he just smelled a diaper.
Dirty diaper.
Okay. And as the CSI guy, that's kind of what he does. He responds to scenes and collects evidence and assists the medical examiner or whatever's needed to be done.
He does.
And you're aware also from your investigation and from the reports that Shumpert actually leaned into the car to take some photographs right there on the scene.
Objection, Judge, that's mischaracterizing the evidence, what he testified to, and it's hearsay. As far as leaning in the car, I believe that's not what was testified to. A, and B, it's hearsay commenting about what somebody else has testified to and their previous statement.
It's not hearsay. It's already in evidence. He's the lead investigator, and he either knows it or he doesn't know it.
I sustain the objection.
Are you aware that he took photographs?
I'm aware he took photographs.
Aware that he took photographs of the interior of the vehicle?
Yes.
And you agree that CSI Shumpert, he didn't report smelling any odor of decomposition or death or anything of that nature, did he?
I do not remember talking to him about that.
But you're the lead investigator,
Yes.
and you just don't remember talking to him about it?
Not about the smell.
Okay. Have you had a chance to review the crime scene log?
I have.
All right. So you know there were numerous other people on the scene, Fireman Michael Beekman.
I'd have to see the log, sir,
Okay.
for specific names.
The state has it in evidence. I'd like to get the original crime scene log if I could, please.
Should have come earlier today, it's upstairs, you have to go upstairs to get it. But they should have a copy of Discovery. Is that provided, Mr. Kilgore? The crime scene log should be in Discovery.
Yeah, it's in Discovery. I was going to put the original in evidence.
Okay.
Y'all keep looking for that, please. All right, so you're aware that fire was on the scene.
Yes, sir.
You just don't know who the individuals are.
I don't remember their names, sir, no.
All right. And you're aware that none of the firemen responding to the scene reported any odor.
I don't think it was written down anywhere that they reported an odor.
Well, in fact, the firemen actually specifically denied.
Judge, now I'm gonna object to hearsay about what the other people testified to. There's a lot to go into in detail about where they were standing, things like that. It's absolute hearsay.
I'll sustain the objection.
All right, you're aware there were two EMS personnel that were responding, including Barwick, who's previously testified, and Mr. Thurlow.
Once again, I know EMS responded to the scene. I don't have their names in front of me.
All right. And are you aware either of them reported smelling any odor?
I've not seen a report of odor on any of their reports.
Okay. You had two officers on the scene who were giving life-saving measures, Gallimore and Folia. And they would have been right in this area if they were over Cooper's body, right?
Correct.
And you've spoken with them.
I have.
You've seen their reports.
I have.
You certainly agree there was no.
Objection, hearsay. Again, asking what another witness told them or what was in their reports. Again, these witnesses are here subject to cross-examination.
Judge, these people have already testified, and he's the lead investigator. This is all part of his investigation. Information that he has received during his investigation. This is all perfectly legitimate cross-examination.
Judge, there's no lead detective exception to hearsay.
Sustain.
So Folia was there, Piper was there, Gallimore was there. True?
Yes, Officer Gallimore, Officer Piper, Officer Foldy.
And there was a fellow helper named Anthony Pantano.
Mr. Pantano was there.
Okay. And there was a guy named James Hawkins.
Mr. Hawkins was there.
Mr. Hawkins assisted with CPR.
Yes.
And he's the one that sort of skedaddled as soon as the police got there.
If I skedaddled, you mean you left the scene? Yes.
And there was a medical examiner investigator, Martin Jackson, was there, correct?
Correct.
You would agree that Martin Jackson was assisting Shumpert. Shumpert was assisting Martin Jackson right here in this area,
Yes, sir.
right over Cooper's body. In fact, manipulating Cooper's body.
Correct.
36 inches or so of the open car.
That's correct.
Chuck, I'm just gonna mark it this way. That was 74, that's 75.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Ted, I'm gonna hand you what has been marked as the fence exhibit 74 and the fence exhibit 75, and this is my here. I'm just gonna give you that packaging and see if you can identify those.
Yes, sir.
All right. And what is 74 and 75?
74 is a handwritten, it appears to be the crime scene log. Detective K. Jones placed it into evidence.
Okay.
And this is a typed, appears to be the same log.
And they appear to be the same thing?
They appear to be, there could be some, I've not gone through line by line, but they appear to be the same thing.
All right. And that's part of your case file?
Yes, the typed one is, yes.
Okay, I'm gonna move 74 and 75.
Just a couple of questions, while you're Judge, about the, Detective Stoddard, did you actually have anything to do with the creation of the crime scene log?
I did not.
Can you vouch for the accuracy or inaccuracy of it whatsoever?
I cannot.
Okay, it's something you do have in your case file.
It's something where I have the hard copy was emailed to me, and I believe it was emailed, I'm sorry, and placed into the case file.
Okay. I don't have any objection, Judge.
Steve?
All right, and the individuals that I've just been questioning you about, you agree that their names appear there on the log?
Yeah.
And
Officer Gallimore, Officer Folia, Officer Piper.
Do you see a Beekman and Ashurst from COP Fire?
Yeah, Fireman M. Beekman and Fireman A. Ashurst.
And a Barwick and Thurlow from EMS?
Yep. Metro Ambulance Paramedic S. Thurla and Metro Ambulance Paramedic P. Barwick.
Do you see an Anthony Pantano on there?
Witness A. Batano, correct?
All right. Do you see James Hawkins on there?
I do not see Mr. Hawkins on here.
Okay. And could it be because he's the one who left out of it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you see a Martin Jackson on there
Yes, I do.
with the medical examiner's office?
Correct.
All right, and you see that Martin Jackson and Shumpert were there at the same time.
They arrived at the same time or on scene at the same time? Which one?
And they left, well, they overlapped and they left about the same time as well.
Yeah, it's like 10 minutes difference.
Okay.
Yeah, Shumpert, Detective B. Shumpert got there 17:21 hours, and Martin Jackson got there 17:50 hours.
All right. Now, during your investigation, you made inquiry, you tried to learn if anybody else had smelled an odor like you did, which you testified previously, and was decomposition and death.
Correct.
And during your investigation, did you learn that anybody else had reported such an odor?
Yes.
Who was that?
CST Grimstead,
Anybody else?
Lieutenant Farrell,
Okay. And you?
Captain Farrell.
All right. So it was you and your boss at the time and CSI Grimstead.
And I believe Martin Jackson said something about an odor also.
What'd he say?
I don't have his testimony in front of me, sir. I believe he said something about an odor.
Well, would it refresh your recollection if I told you that he reported an odor of urine?
Okay.
Does that refresh your recollection?
I don't remember the whole testimony, but I believe that was part of it.
And Martin Jackson, you know him, don't you?
I do.
Okay. Martin Jackson has got sort of a lengthy career in the death and crime scene business, right?
He does.
I mean, he grew up working in funeral home.
Correct.
He's had a lot of training.
Correct.
And what he does for the medical examiner is he's the on-scene guy. He responds where there has been a death.
Correct.
And your recollection is what he reported was that he smelled urine.
One part of it, yes.
What was the other part?
Well, I don't know. I don't have his testimony in front of me.
But you recall specifically that certainly you and your boss Farrell and Grimstead, three of you reported smelling an odor associated with death.
Correct. Well, once again, I'm not going to say exactly what they said. It was a follow order. I don't remember exactly, but I didn't see Lieutenant Farrell's, or Captain Farrell's, I'm sorry,
Okay.
testimony. And I was, when we saw, I don't remember all of Detective Grimstead's testimony. So they did smell something,
All right.
I will say that.
Well, let me ask you, do you recall exactly when CSI Grimstead reported that he smelled an odor associated with death?
I do not.
Is it possible that it was a year after Cooper's passing?
And by reported, you mean?
Filed a written report.
Yes.
Do you recall any sort of meeting between you and Lieutenant Farrell and Detective Grimstead about this issue?
I remember Captain Farrell being there. I do remember talking to Detective Grimstead about them.
All right. You know what confirmation bias is?
Do not.
You've never been trained in confirmation bias?
Objection, asked and answered. He asked if he knew what it was, he said no.
Give us some more, too.
I'm sorry, Judge, I didn't hear there was a
I
reference.
said, I'll give you some latitude for that.
If you've not been trained in it, then I can't ask you about it. You don't know what it is?
No.
Okay. Inasmuch as it was only the three of you that reported some sort of odor associated with death, isn't it possible?
Judge, I'm gonna clarify, does he mean on the body, where is he talking about the smell? I'm gonna object that the question be more specific. I think it's not directed.
Pete has some on cross.
Everybody has a different sense of smell, don't they?
That's correct.
And we're just going to assume y'all smelled exactly what you reported. Okay? Isn't it possible that Ross did not smell that?
Of course it's possible.
Okay. Thank you. I want to talk to you a little bit about the phone calls to Little Aprons. You testified about that a little bit yesterday,
Yes, sir.
and we got into evidence. 647. Look at that. Does that, you remember what 647 was?
It appears to be the call log extraction from the iPhone.
Pulled out just the 18th. I'm going to hand you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 72, and see if you could match that up, and just for purposes of making your testimony a little bit easier, see if you can identify that.
similar, well, they're similar, but they're not exactly the same.
Okay. Have you ever reviewed the call log before?
Oh, I have.
Okay. What I've handed you is an extraction report from y'all's piece of evidence, and if there's something markedly different, we're gonna have to stop court and get to the bottom of it, but I'm just asking if you can identify the phone log, which y'all put into evidence through, that's a cutaway from it, from the extraction report.
Yeah, but it's, why is it, hold on. Yeah, I don't know why it's not numbered in the correct way, but they're not numbered the same.
What I've handed you, Detective, does that appear to be the call log from Ross's phone on the 18th of June, 2014?
Stand by. Yeah, it's reordered, but it appears to be the same call log. I don't know why it's not ordered the same way.
Okay.
The numbers don't match up, but it appears to be.
All right, I'll move 427.
No objection.
Admitted.
All right, look, if you would, please, to the call at 4:25 and 20 seconds.
Okay.
Now, this is, what I'm drawing your attention to is a phone call made from Ross's phone at 4:25 and 20 seconds on June the 18th. Do you see that?
I see it.
Did it show where that call was made to?
It shows who, it looks like the main Home Depot corporate.
Okay. And you recognize that as the number that you looked at that rings back to Little Acres?
This is the main number that brings to the Home Depot, and it goes through a switchboard, and then you have to add the numbers to it. It does not show up on your log.
It has to go to a switchboard?
It goes into the main, and then you type in more numbers to get to Tyler Room 5. So it's like calling it that it's like, you know, what directory or what, I don't know the exact wording, but it's like if you want such and such a person or such and such a place, type in these numbers, and you add those numbers.
And in fact, that's consistent with the photograph that was put into evidence earlier of Ross's phone. It actually says Home Depot, correct? The number he called?
I don't recall. But this number, the 8211, is the Home Depot number.
What happens if you don't punch in those additional numbers?
I don't know. I think you just kind of sit there.
Kind of sit there. Look at the call at 4:25:57. See that?
I do.
And where was that call to?
That call at 42557 was also to the Home Depot.
Switchboard number?
It is.
So you would agree that that's essentially the same thing. If you don't punch in those additional numbers, the phone call just kind of sits there.
Correct.
That call lasted 5 minutes and 13 seconds, correct?
That is correct.
Now, if we do the math,
Mhm.
and if the call originated at 4:25:57,
Mhm.
and that call lasted 5 minutes and 13 seconds,
Mhm.
And that call lasted until 4:31:10. You see that?
I do
Have I done the math correctly, Detective?
believe so.
Set that aside for a second. You interviewed Michelle Gray twice about these phone calls, correct?
That's correct.
And as we've heard, you actually met with her downtown in a lawyer's office.
We did.
And in fairness, confronted her rather directly about whether or not she was on the phone with Ross.
She was.
In fact, this is a matter that you testified to previously before magistrates
Yes.
in seeking warrants. And you warned her that it could be a crime if she was making a false statement.
I did.
Okay. And she hasn't been charged with anything, has she?
She has not.
And you don't have any evidence that Ross ever spoke to Michelle Gray?
We have no direct evidence. We have evidence that the call was directed to the toddler room, but we don't have any evidence that she spoke with him, that it was her that spoke to him.
States Exhibit 237 includes a CAD report in this case. It's been stamped by Kathy Gordon at Cobb Communicate. You know who Kathy Gordon is?
Yes, we do.
So I've marked it Defendant's Exhibit 73.
Okay.
And see if that looks like the CAD report, which is already in evidence through the state's exhibit.
It does appear so.
Move 73.
I don't know if that exact document's in, Judge, but we don't have any objection.
I want you to take a look at the CAD report for 4/27/04.
Okay.
What does it say was reported at 4/27/04?
16/27/04, 3315, one detained.
Say again, I'm sorry.
3315, one detained.
One detained.
One detained.
What does that mean?
In handcuffs in the car.
So at 4/27/04, it's already being reported that we've got one handcuffed in a car detained.
Correct.
So you would agree that if Ross was in custody and it was being reported he was in custody at 4/27/04, he'd been in custody several minutes during that phone call, which ended at 4/31/10.
No, I wouldn't agree with that.
Okay. When someone is arrested and detained, that action is ultimately reported back, and that's what we see on the CAD, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And it doesn't happen simultaneously, does it?
Sometimes.
Okay. And sometimes what happens is the officer deals with the event, whatever it is they're doing, handcuffing someone, responding in whatever way. Once they get somebody in the car, get a break in the action, they immediately report in, or as soon as possible they report in.
Which is also true.
Here, Cobb County 911 CAD shows reporting in at 4/27/04. He was already in custody, detained, handcuffed in the back of the car.
Correct.
Detective, isn't it possible that what really happened when they were fumbling for the phone is that they hit redial on the number that he had just called a moment earlier?
Well, that is possible.
You learned during your investigation in speaking with Ross that he was trying to reach Little Aprons at some point during that chaos on the scene.
Yes.
And what he explained to you was, and what you learned was, he knew that she was going to be there, and he sort of wanted to head it off. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And in fact, when we look at his phone log, he got the calls flipped. He actually dialed Leanna, or at some point in time, Leanna was called previously to calling Little Aprons.
Yes.
And when he told you that, he had it flipped. He said he called Little Aprons first and then called Leanna.
That's correct.
Looking at the log, we know he got that wrong, right?
Yes.
But we know he was right, and he was telling you the truth when he said he was trying to reach Little Aprons.
Correct.
We got a 26-second call, and then we got a call that lasted for minutes, apparently with nobody, not talking to anybody. Fair to say?
It's fair to say I don't know who answered the phone, or, but yeah, it's fair to say.
And certainly, that scenario would be consistent with someone who was in absolute panic at the time trying to reach or trying to reach Little Aprons to head her off.
That is a possibility.
Okay. You interviewed Wesley Houston in this case?
Security guard?
Mhm.
Yes.
All right. He never told you that Ross announced that he was going to a movie, did he?
I don't recall the entire conversation.
You recall that part of it?
I don't recall that, no.
Okay. He never told you that he was going to meet Winston Mullins, did he?
I don't recall that part.
He never told you Ross was making a public service announcement while he was leaving the building, did he?
I don't recall those terms being used, sir.
Okay. Did you see Wesley Houston when he was testifying?
Most of it.
Okay.
Well, I'm not gonna say that. It's all part of it. I'd say part, I believe us.
Okay. Had you had a chance to review his recording before he testified?
No, I have not.
Okay. It was a very short interview, wasn't it?
It was.
Did you have a chance to meet with him before he testified?
I did not.
All right. When you interviewed him, that was about a month after Cooper's death, roughly?
I'd have to look at my.
Well, if I told you it was July the 16th, does that sound about right?
It could be, yes.
Okay. But what he did tell you was that when Leanna came in, she told him her husband's name was Ross Harris. Isn't that true?
Once again, sir, I'd have to look at my report.
Do you recall that what Mr. Houston told you was that Leanna was the one that gave him the information that Ross was supposed to be going to a movie with a guy named Winston Mullins?
Once again, sir, if I could review it, my supplement,
Okay.
I'd be able to answer that.
tell you what, do you have some kind of lunch plans that would prevent you from listening to that 10-minute interview during our break?
No.
All right. If you don't mind, if you would do that for me, I would appreciate it, and I'll come back to that, okay?
We can do that.
All right, thank you. Cody, can you grab that? Over there. Well, we're setting a few things up. I want to ask you about that area in the treehouse where Wesley Houston would sit, and where we saw videos of Ross coming in and out of
Yes, sir.
that area. There are monitors and screens right there in that little security area, aren't there?
There are.
In those monitors and screens, anybody that's walking through that area, certainly if you worked there, walked back and forth there every day, you would be able to see those, and you could tell that those screens are there.
Correct.
And those screens show the parking lot, don't they?
I believe so.
Some of them show the parking lot, some of them show the interior of the building.
I believe so.
Okay. So anybody that works there, that comes back and forth across there every day, they will be able to see that that parking lot is being surveilled.
Very possible.
All right. Bottom line is, you certainly would agree, Ross Harris has every reason in the world to know and understand that that parking lot is being monitored and surveilled by cameras.
Correct.
All right. I'll ask you to just step down here just for a sec. I promise to not keep you on your feet too long. All right, so what I'm showing you is what's been admitted as Defense Exhibit 35. I know you've seen this a billion times, Detective. If you could just orient yourself, you know what we're looking at.
Yep, this is the treehouse.
All right. And if you would, please point to the area where Ross was parked that day,
On what day?
on June the 18th.
On June 18th, he would have been parked right here.
Okay, right where the little red sticker is.
Yes, sir.
All right. And you would agree that what we saw through the videos is that, I've got behind you, is that Ross comes in off the road, and he comes around this way, and he does a little three-point maneuver and pulls straight into that parking spot, correct?
Yeah, either, we don't have the video showing this side, so,
Mhm.
I mean, he could have come this way, but you're correct, in that he comes around, he does a little maneuver to park right here.
Okay. And you recall that on that day, these parking spaces were pretty much full up, weren't they?
Correct.
Now, did you happen to notice parking spaces on the perimeter?
Once again, we don't have video showing
Mhm.
right here. There's possibility that there's some, but once again, video, there's no video of that section that I've seen.
Right. But there is very clear video of the wood line right here, isn't there?
There is.
And you agree that what we see is that there are at least two parking spaces available on this wood line, directly in back of where Ross parked.
Correct.
And you would agree that if Ross were inclined to put his car somewhere where nobody was gonna walk behind it, and nobody was gonna be able to look into the back window straight on to a rear-facing car seat, you would agree that Ross could have very easily just backed in to one of the wood line spots.
Yeah, 'cause when Ross pulls up, or the defendant, I'm sorry, pulls up, he does back up, he backs up in between two cars. So he does come back, and he could have kept going and backed up against the wood line, but he chose to drive forward.
You agree with what I'm saying, though? If he were inclined to put his car in a place where nobody could walk behind it,
Mhm.
to where they could look into the back window, straight onto that that rear-facing car seat,
Yes, sir.
he had the opportunity to do that and park in one of these spaces.
He certainly did.
Okay. And he didn't do that, did he?
Nope. He pulled forward after backing up, he pulled forward right into that space.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right, let's, Detective, if it's okay, let's you and I sort of, if you'll stand over there as long as you can see. Can you see okay here? I'm sorry. I just want the jury to be able to see. So if there's anybody that can't see as we're going through this, if you just wave and we'll readjust.
Second?
Yeah. Can everybody see more or less from here? Okay. All right. Do you recall testifying as to what time Ross parked the morning of the 18th?
Around, you tell him parking here? Around 9:25-ish. I got the exact time, so around 9:25 in the morning.
Okay, 9:25-ish.
Ish.
All right. As part of your investigation, you obtained videos of the parking lot from a couple of different cameras, correct?
Correct.
And it included the entirety of the day of June the 18th.
It did.
Okay. Did you review those videos?
I did.
Did you review the entire day?
I did.
Good. And I want to show you, what exhibit number is this, Mr. Lumpkin? 372. Okay, this is States 372.
Okay.
And what we're looking at here is labeled 2600, that's the building, the treehouse.
Correct.
Parking, front lot, left.
Correct.
Okay? So we're at time 9:30:55, and do you see where Mr. Harris's truck is?
I do.
All right. There's a little bit of a glare from my vantage point. Can you point to it, please? All right, thank you very much. All right, so the time is 9:30:55.
Correct.
Mr. Lumpkin, if you could please play for a moment, about 2 minutes, please. See that lady that just walked right by?
Yes.
Stop there, please. Back that up just a tad. All right, play that again. See the lady walking there?
Yes, sir.
Keep playing it. All right, stop. Stop it. All right. You see this lady right here?
You're talking, oh, one right here?
Uh-huh.
Yep.
All right. And you agree what we saw is she came from the back side of Ross's truck and walked right by his driver's side door.
That's correct.
Okay, and that's at 9:31:04. And this would have been 6 minutes-ish of Ross getting out of his car, right?
Yes. Ish.
Okay. Who was that lady?
We didn't identify her.
Okay. Did you attempt to identify her?
Yep. We did.
All right. And how did you do that?
Tried to go with badge-in reports. I had Home Depot go back, and they were unable to tell me exactly who she was. I believe that was the person we tried.
All right, you believe you tried with her?
We tried a couple different people to identify them walking through that parking lot. We weren't able to.
Okay. All right, if you jump ahead to about roughly 9:34. Now, this is the morning, there's people still coming in to
Yes, sir.
work this time of morning, right?
There are.
Roughly at 9:34. A little more back. It's very delicate. There we go. All right, just let it run from there. All right, so we're at 9:32:48. I want you to look in the area of the car at about 9 minutes 9:34:14 roughly. And we can see from this, the area of the lot that Ross parked in was shaded.
It appears to be shaded this one.
In fact, there's a tree.
Oh, there's a tree, but also there'll be a little bit of sunshine on it.
Okay.
But yeah,
And here, and we can also see these spaces in the back of the lot where he could have parked right back of the wood line,
yeah,
correct?
because when he backed up, I mean, he went past the space, he backs up, and he backs up between two cars, so there was a space over there.
Is it rolling? Okay. Yeah, it's fine. I mean, we're gonna go through part of this, this video, Judge, and we'll refresh it, so, now it's fine.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's take our lunch break. Close your notepads, keep an open mind, don't discuss the matter. It's a time to enjoy each other's company and your lunch. Don't step out.
Please watch your step going down.
We stand in recess. Everybody have a good lunch.